Hi and welcome to another ink review. My name's Michael and today we're looking at another ink from the Robert Oster line, this time from the InkArt.ink line, and it is a new ink, Lake of Fire. Now, Robert Oster is known for his blues. He produces a lot of blue inks, and this one, like the others, is really strong. It's a nice dark blue with some dark sort of grey tones that sort of come through, and this particular one is part of the InkArt.ink line, and it comes in the larger 100ml bottle, and with the silver label as opposed to the original standard gold label. In fact, here it is alongside one of the original or standard Signatue ink line bottles, which is a 50ml, and this one is Tranquility, one of my favourites. But these bottles retail for about $29 a bottle here in Australia, and at the I got mine partnered with the James Finnis Robert Oster collaboration hybrid dip pen, the Serendipity, yes, a pun in a pen name, I love it, which uses a standard fountain pen nib and feed as a dip pen, so that you get a lot more ink to sort of stay, and you can write for about a page on one dip with this pen. Now, the InkArt.ink is slightly different to the standard inks in that it has a slightly different makeup, which is better for, or more designed for use with artwork and with dip pens, and it also has some sort of a UV resistance, I suppose, for lack of a better term, built in to the ink. It's made here in Australia, and the bottles are environmentally friendly. As you can find on the Robert Oster website, you can find some really good information about that. And for less than $30 for 100ml of ink is a really great value. It's particularly when you think that a 60ml bottle of Mont Blanc ink goes for another half that again, a lot of the times. So really good value and a really lovely ink. Like a lot of Robert Oster blues, it has a really lovely red sheen, and this particular ink is really quite beautiful. So let's look at it in some written tests. Here it is done on Rhodia 80g paper, standard sort of paper. Now this was done with a TWSBI Eco with a 1.1mm stub. As you can see, the pen is no longer inked with this. It's being prepared for the next review. But this is a really lovely wet stub pen, and with that huge ink capacity, of course, it allows you to play with the ink for quite a while. Anyway, here it is, the Robert Oster signature InkArt.ink Lake of Fire. As you can see from the writing, it is a nice sort of shading ink with a sort of a, I wouldn't say dark blue as the primary, but a nice rich blue. I also tried it in a Lamy Extra Fine and a Lamy Broad, and the Broad really laid down a lot of ink, and that was a really lovely thick line of ink with lots of shading and sheen, particularly on Tomel River and other fountain pen friendly papers. When I put it in a flex nib, I managed to get quite a lot of sheen on this Rhodia paper, and even on the triple pass there, which shows, of course, the gradient of the shading as well. So let's look at the tests, if you will. Saturation. Okay, this is a beautifully saturated ink, like a lot of Robert Oster inks are. Cleaning is fair. Now, water resistance, I didn't actually mark it there, but it's actually not too bad. You can see that while we lost most of the detail and most of the ink, we were able to keep a little bit there, just to sort of you can make out what it is. So it's not the worst of the Robert Osters in terms of water resistance. Shading is excellent. The sheen, it's nice and red, a beautiful dark red, and as I said, excellent on Tomoe River and such papers. Colour, it's a rich, dusty dark blue with some really lovely sort of nice grey shades. And actually, while I just realised I haven't actually done the chromatography, so let's have a quick look at that now. What you get is a nice sort of dark blue sort of hanging around, and then some grey, and I think that's where we get some of those sort of grey shades which sort of run through it. And then greeny blue, and then a nice little hint of yellow just at the top, giving it a nice sort of vibrancy on the paper. Wetness of this ink is really good. I think it's part of the InkArt.ink line, is to have highly lubricated inks, and that works beautifully. As with the flow and the lubrication, both excellent. Dry time was fair, 30 seconds on this paper, and you'll see on some other papers how that varies as well. So it's not bad, but it is quite a wet ink. Now, bleed and feather, once again, I haven't marked them on this, but we'll see on the other papers as well. X factor is the sheen, like many Robert Oster inks. It sheens well, not as easily as fire and ice or blue water ice, but it's a really nice, when you get it, as you can see, it's a beautiful sheen. Let's look at it on the other paper. Here's it on Tomoe River, with that sheen being quite present. Dry time of 35 to 40 seconds, so yeah, on the slow-ish side. But as you can see from both papers, it doesn't bleed through. It's really well behaved. It bleeds a little bit with the flex and of course with the swabs, but not really much at all. So bleed and feather are both excellent. Like, there's no feathering at all on this Rhodia. And even on the more budget-friendly paper, which you're about to see, it's still really minimal. So here it is on the reflex copy paper, 80 gram. As you can see, no feathering or anything, just a nice sort of rich dark blue, even a hint of sheen. Now, this is printer paper and we're getting sheen. So that says something about this ink. Dry time of 15 to 20 seconds. It's slow on this paper, slow on all paper, but I think it's worth it. Here it is on the Spyrex lecture notepad, and dry time of about 10 seconds. Most ink dries on this paper in about 5 seconds, so it is slow. And you get some shading, which is unusual on this paper, but yeah, no feathering, virtually no bleed, really well behaved, really beautiful ink. So let's talk about the scoring now. I've given the colour a 4. I think it's a really lovely rich blue. The performance is a 4. It behaves really well in every pen I've had it in. It writes really beautifully with the Serendipity. It's a really, these come with a Yovo nib, and it's really smooth. And I think the lubrication of this ink with this nib makes a really pleasant, beautiful writing experience. I'll be doing a proper review of this pen soon, but as you can see, the acrylic is beautiful and it's such an interesting concept, so well done, guys. X Factor I've given a 4. The sheen of this ink is really beautiful. It's a darker, it seems to be a slightly darker sheen than Fire and Ice. Maybe it's just in comparison to the colour it looks slightly darker, but it's really stunning. Value 4, yeah, $28 for 100 ml, easily great value. So averages out to a 4 out of 5. With the impression of the ink, how it feels to use and how it reacts, as you know, from a personal point of view, I've given this a 4.5. I think it's a really, really great ink and a lovely addition to the Robert Oster line. So that was Robert Oster's Lake of Fire, which is part of the InkArt.ink line, and something that I think is a really interesting addition to his Robert Oster's ink lineup, and it'll be interesting to see how the other inks are adapted into the InkArt.ink line over time. This ink at the moment is available through most online retailers. I got mine from this and the pen, the Serendipity, from Pensive Pens. So check them out. I'll put a link to their website below. I'm not sure if it's going to come out in the 50ml bottle, but at the moment I've seen it only in this 100ml, but even for that price I think it's really worth getting. So I hope you found that video helpful and useful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos I produce. Please drop me a message with any questions or information you'd like to pass on, or if there's anything you'd like me to look at in particular. It's always nice to stay in touch with the fountain pen community. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you later.